Well, this is the latest public presentation relating to the proposed new hospital. This is about the environmental impact. And as always, they say, we want to hear from you. This initial stuff is about decisions which have already been made. The hospital's going to be built. We know where it's going to be built. We, the public, don't know what shape it's going to be, but we pretty much know it's got to fit within an existing constrained site, so it can't do much different from sitting within the constraints of the existing buildings that surround it and the road plan, which is a great shame. They haven't got a picture of us to show us what it will actually look like, or even actually yet what will go inside it. Unfortunately, the process is it'll go for planning permission, outline planning as they call it these days. And we, the public, won't know what's going inside it. So if somebody's bedroom is overlooked by the hospital, we won't really know that until it gets to the development stage, which probably will be too late to do anything about it. So there's a lot of sort of practical considerations which go on. That's the site. This is one of my bugbears. This is existing staff accommodation. This is the existing staff accommodation here, and that's going to become basically outpatients, which, as you can see, is remote from what will be the hospital. Now, initially, they had no car parking provision there. They had no car parking. Can't get my finger on it. There it is. There wasn't going to be. There's no proposal to put some car parking. So that if you're going to the outpatients, you can park there, and also for the staff, but there was going to be no staff. They were talking about a shuttle bus, as I say, going across to the car park, which of course is over there, the existing car park. So those are the sort of things which are worrying me still, and also I think it's a great pity that the road plan is being kept more or less as it is, because a lot of these roads aren't very nice roads. They're rather unpleasant from a pedestrian point of view. And bear in mind, noise, dust, a lot of it is created on these roads that go around the hospital. So these are all part of the environmental impact. Environmental impact assessment. Now, to do an impact assessment on a small building can be a nightmare. You have to look for existing creepy crawlers and bats and things that fly. Well, they found none on this. Two gulls on the roof somewhere, but there's no bats that they can find. And of course, Jersey doesn't have many wild animals to worry about, so there's not much existing wildlife on the site. Whether there ought to be some wildlife on the new site is another matter, of course. Whether the bat group here says, well, they ought to design for bats or swallows or pigeons or rabbits that used to, no doubt, I don't know, what ought to be in this area. Greenery, trees, all that sort of thing, foliage, I don't know. Whether they ought to be growing their own potatoes. The environmentalists ought to be here looking at all this stuff, but I did ask somebody, and maybe we'll get to ask them more fully, who assesses the impact assessment? Once this group here has cobbled together any public input, and they've got together all their research that they've done, they have to give it to somebody to assess it. Does it pass the test? Is it environmentally friendly? When they demolish the building, will they have somewhere to put all the rubbish that comes out of the existing structure, all the raised concrete and the blocks, the windows and the plastic and the asbestos? Can they adequately dispose? All that's part of the assessment. Here are it. They're going to comply with the law. Of course, what European Union regulations they have to apply to comply with after Brexit, I have no idea. Whether we can dump rubbish away, export rubbish, I have no idea. what they find in the ground, whether the tide rises up, all these questions, long-term projects, not resolved. There's no archaeological masters of interest on the site as far as there's no Roman camp as far as we know. If there is an old Roman camp on the site, they're going to build over it because they can't preserve it. That's it. We know all this. This is the planned construction stage, provided we get the 466 million, isn't it? The finance sorted out. There are some little minor alterations to road layouts. Nothing quite like what I'd like to see, but who am I to say? Here we are. This is it. The transport infrastructure. Car parking, from my perspective, is totally inadequate. It's competing with the finance industry. Across the road, totally inadequate provision. There's the great saga of the great sunken road yet to be resolved. Nobody knows what's going to happen to that. Well, we all know what's going to happen. It's not going to happen, but it hasn't been made public yet. So the existing car parking, the existing multi-storey, is full every morning. So I'm afraid patients, staff, volunteer workers, much maligned volunteer workers who volunteer to give their time at the hospital and come to town, work in the hospital and get a parking fine because there's no form to park. Lots of issues resolved. I'm told those are management issues, not design issues. Well, to me that's a design issue. Lots of things are design issues. Hoping I can't get any architects, independent architects, to speak to me. I can't get any doctors or medics to speak to me. Hopefully, before we get much further, we'll get some meetings organised and discuss some of these things. But who knows?